Hello, and welcome to another episode of Marketing Corner. Today, before we get into our conversation, we're going to jump into the world of community, and more specifically, community around creatives, like creative artists, and how are they getting their messaging out there? How are they getting connected with the individuals that they want to share their beautiful work and artistic elements with? And we have a very special guest with us here today. Uh, Kristine is the founder of the Modern Artist Project. Kristine, who is Kristine? Tell us about you, Kristine, and tell us about what is this Modern Artist Project?
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me today. It's really a big pleasure for me to find the time to speak with you about the Modern Artist Project. So basically, I am an entrepreneur. I'm also a musician. I'm also a writer, researcher. I do a variety of different things. And so basically, with the idea that I have for the Modern Artist Project, is actually my second entrepreneurial project, the first one being the Music and Language Learning Center. And so what's funny about that is that TMAP is actually an idea I've had for like 15 years. But the problem I had was just being able to have the courage, because sometimes the biggest thing that holds us back is the idea of fear. And so basically the Modern Artist Project is a cultivation of 17 years of frustrations, roughly 17 years of frustrations, which is like sometimes like one of the best ways of being able to build a business, of being able to address certain problems, in regards to, the creative industries. Not only, okay, what's the best way we can put ourselves out there, but actually, the step by step, the small pragmatic things like, writing a biography,
Mhm.
making sure that you have a good portfolio, making sure that you have quality resources, and being able to also provide resources of what we do within the context of community, the context of, the digital age that we live in. So I know that was a lot of words, but
But we talk about the evolution of how we say creatives and we say artists or whatever way we want to explore, because there's a variety of different people in this mix. It's not only the musician like you are. There's the artist, the actual artist. There's people that actually write and are content writers and those elements. But how do we get their messaging out there? How do we personalize and build their branding in order to get their messaging out there to reach an audience that would be inspired by them?
so, yeah, I mean, and this is a great question because there's so many, artists, there's so many creatives, there's so many people who want to share things,
Mhm.
and by being able to, put things together, I mean, a lot of what I've accomplished, at least to this point of my career, as a creative, as a musician, has been through like trial and error, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the time people think, oh, you must be like the best, you must be like awesome, which is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be awesome, right? Because being awesome gives you that edge, but being able to understand how do we craft that into something that makes it so people can resonate with your awesomeness, right? Or, all those hours of practice or all of those hours like writing, studying, into something that could be a substantial, contribution and sustainable. Throughout my whole life, I've seen so many people who have done really amazing, phenomenal things in music who have quit because yeah, and it's so sad because you see these talented people, and that's the reason why I created the Modern Artist Project, and in the context of, the world we live in today. um yeah.
And you're talking about you've created this platform in order to support these individuals. Now, these individuals, and I love what you're saying, because there is so much great talent out there, but how is it being exposed? Like, where do we find it? If you don't get on the right YouTube channel, you don't get the right following, you don't get those elements. How do they get? How do we actually see these individuals, and how do we meet them? And you said you're on a journey to do this. Tell us a little bit about what's that journey look like. Let's put it in the world of the artist. An artist is coming to you. What are you doing for them?
So a lot of the things that we've done until this point have been like a word of mouth. Just because of the fact that we do offer like a variety of different, services, not just like, okay, how to create a website or how to write a biography, but we also do like academic writing, like editing, whether it's like a big paper, for a master's document, or, a PhD, or even smaller essays. And, being able to provide that feedback, because I am also an academic, I'm also like a researcher, and, being able to have those skills. I remember early on, the writing centers at universities,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, God bless their souls. I mean, there's so many, like, so many people who go there who are like, like wanting to like use the sources. And I repeat, I am not saying that writing centers are bad at universities. If anything, I wish they had more support. Okay.
more
Um,
resources.
so just to clarify, it's just a matter of being able to, provide personalized, like, I remember times that I went there, writing documents about, music, like these really abstract, complicated things, and having the people say, I don't know this topic, but, just make sure that, the punctuation is good here. And I was like, that's not helpful for me. I mean, in regards to making sure that my ideas were clear. So that's one of the things that we offer, now, like going back to, the things that you've mentioned, um, when we think about this like struggle that sometimes people have, and that was part of the reason why, what's great about what we're doing is like it's word of mouth, right? Right now, one of the things we want to do is being able to expand, reaching out to, universities, reaching out, to do different types of workshops, being able to actually demonstrate to students, young professionals. And this, just to clarify, the Modern Artists Project is not just for young professionals, it's for professionals at all, like levels of your career, so, being able to demonstrate to students with the resources that you have available to you. Think about it. You have a building at your disposal. You have a
Mhm.
piano if you need to play piano. I mean, maybe you might have to pay a small fee to record your recital. You have the capacity to build your portfolio while you're still in school. And a lot of the time, it's like the mindset that people say, it's like, oh, man, I'm not good enough. Maybe it's not good enough to have as a portfolio, but the thing is, if you work hard enough, right? Be it in me, I'm talking from the perspective of music, but, like even for paintings, like, being able to say, okay, these are my 5 best paintings. Who am I going to show this to? Or if you're a poet, look for people that inspire you, say, okay, I have 5 poems, this is my best work, tell me what you think, right? In regards to, just being able to like develop yourself. And a lot of time young people feel really nervous about that because they're so self-conscious. And and with the Modern Artist Project, I try to like encourage, that type of, empowerment, ownership, because your career is not going to fall into your lap, you know
Yeah, no, you're right because just I know this so we're in the same boat as here. I've launched multiple different businesses, and all those things happened because I was out exploring and challenging myself and pushing the boundaries around things because that's where up. But I love what you're saying. I want to go back a little bit because one of the things you did say in there, and actually, and by the way, Kristine, on my last podcast we talked about the same idea around, hey, students should do now building their portfolio and leverage artificial intelligence to help them building that portfolio. I love that element that you're talking, but I want to go back to one of the things that we talk about is ideation. And ideation is, how do I get that messaging across? I am an artist. I have this portfolio. I need to get that across, but how do I get that messaging across? And you talked about that a little bit in even in the papers, like I'm trying to write maybe this thesis, but maybe my idea is not getting across, and it's in how we message it. Tell us more about this element.
So when we think about the idea of, the idea of artificial intelligence, the idea of content creation, the idea of, having a website, being able to be aware of like SEO, like, I mean, with search engine optimization and things like that. A lot of time people think I'm crazy, right? Because it's like, how do you know all that? Who trained you? You know? And I was like, but the thing is that it kind of comes with, being an entrepreneur. I mean, besides some coursework that I've done with the Global Leaders program, which is now the Global Leaders Institute, within the context of social entrepreneurship, taking the arts and, being able to use it in a way that it makes an impact, like social impact. I mean, a lot of the things that I did with the Music and Language Learning Center is just like I do it and I'm like, okay, like someone told me, or okay, this SEO, like, why is that important for me to have like in a good space? And like, oh, okay, I have a person who can fix that, right? Being able to understand like what it is and being able to apply it. Now, with all the things that I learned from the Music and Language Learning Center, I started applying to my own portfolio as a professional musician, and in addition to the Modern Artist Project. So in regards to the content that we use, right? So for example, if you're an artist or poet or what have you, don't think that, okay, because I did this one interview, because I wrote this one blog, how can, like, it just exists as one thing. But being able to take that one thing that you create and being able to break it up into different parts. So for example, one of the things that we're doing with the blog content is not only just having it as a blog with like backlinks and everything, right? And this is something that could be used. I mean, one of the things that people forget as artists is like, you do have to have backlinks like to your blogs, because if you want to be able to increase traffic to your website, you have to be using viable resources in regards to making sure that you have you can encourage that, or at least better encourage it. So basically taking a text and saying, okay, right, using AI, let's go to Chat GPT, right? I know it's like Chat GPT is so 2022 now, and like there's so many AI things coming out. I'm just going to use that one because that's like the most user friendly for me, because because I do too much stuff. But anyway, so like say, okay, take that text. Okay, uh, give me an outline, right, of this blog, right? It give you an outline. Okay, right. So then if it's too many words, then usually I say, okay, can you give me 6 to 8 words for each step, right? Or each step of the outline. Then it reduces it down for you. That saves so much time instead of just trying to like go in and just being like, okay, I mean, there's always that element of human like editing, like to make sure it makes sense. But then you would say you would take that content and then actually say, okay, now we can have a carousel of images that make it so people can swipe and say, oh, step by step, how to put together a clarinet or how to self-publish. And then you could take that same content and then create reels. And so one of the things that we're realizing, I know this is a lot of words, but
this is exactly where we need to go, is repurposing content. Yeah, go, yeah.
So taking those images, like those infographics, and then creating a reel. But taking that reel, but also putting music to it, right? So the selections of music that you use, like I recommend usually going with like what the algorithm says of what's like really popular, because that's what people will listen to, right? And so being able to say, okay, now we have a reel, and putting it, making sure that there are proper hashtags, making sure that there are, the text, the caption is like really engaging, and using the AI to like provide a suggestion. Now, ChatGPT is sometimes it comes up with great suggestions. Some of the suggestions are a little on the cheesy end of things. So the thing is like, there's always that human element that always has to be okay. If you feel like it's cheesy, it's like, okay, we gotta chat, we gotta have a conversation, Chat GPT. Turn the cheese down, like type of thing. So that kind of gives you an idea of, I'm so sorry, I know I'm being ridiculous, but
I love it, Kristine. You're going on the right pathway. And again, yes, there's tools out there like ChatGPT, and we're talking about elements. You got to prompt this thing because it's 78% proof. It's not quite to 100%. By the end of this year, it'll probably be closer to 100%. It's getting smarter and smarter. But what I hear in this element is we talk about repurposing content. We say we're going to look at different ways of repurposing content, leverage those technologies out there. But one of the things I want to circle back to, because we talked about this very early on, and it comes back to the element of branding. What's your story? and who's the community you're building for. Because I think that is will help you in determining those messaging elements. So we talk about this element of, how do we tell that story? How do we get that message out there? And how are we starting to build our own community? And I think, Kristine, you've been doing a lot of work around this element.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the branding, a lot of time people think you have to have like thousands and thousands of dollars. You have to be so
No.
filthy rich, come from old money, to be able to start any sort of venture. And it's just a matter of being able to use the resources that are available to you. Now, with this logo that you see right here, even though a lot of time, people might think, oh, that's a music symbol, and the Modern Artist Project, artist meaning, okay, does that mean like artists that paint, type of thing? But I see a music symbol there, which I can see, like, people could be like, Kristine, what's the branding message here? Well, because the thing is, like, my journey started with music, being surrounded by music, dancing, like when I was little, and being able to be surrounded by that. And so that was part of the reason why I made the decision, to have, that small music symbol there, in regards, even though it's not the only thing that we focus on, but it's like, it's basically the heart of like how it began, like, the journey of one person, but also being able to see the faults across, that it's not just music that's experiencing this problem.
Mhm.
It's like it's across the creative disciplines, or creative industries, and being able to say, okay, right, so I have the branding. It's not too much in your face. It's, it's clean, it's fine. It's actually a lot easier than the Music and Language Learning Center. I felt bad for the girl who actually created that logo, because we went through like 30,000 colors of birds,
Yeah.
uh, like different kinds of birds, at like a ridiculous amount of fonts, but, and so that's part of the reason why, branding is important, because of the fact that, like, people connect that image to your, organization. So, and what was the last part? You're gonna
Well,
have
no,
to
I think,
pick
and
the
you talk
last
about
part of the
branding, but
question.
let's dive into the world, because branding, being a logo is one thing, but telling the story of what your journey is, what's the purpose of that journey? Because as it leads into how do you build that community? Is it build that community based on that story? Why are people following you? Why are they engaging with you? How do you start telling that message, and how do you start building that community?
So one of the things, you're not going to believe it, David,
Yeah.
but I'm a really shy person.
I don't believe it.
No, like, you guys, I'm really shy. I am like a highly functioning introvert. Yes, I admitted it to all of the students at Douglas College. I am I am a highly functioning introvert, and it took a long for, you're laughing because you think this is ridiculous. I'm like, yes, I am. So there you go, cat's out of the bag. And but so I was really reluctant to start a podcast, because it was like, okay, like, if I really want to get this story out there, I have to find a way to tell it, not just through like pictures and short videos, but like, actually, like conversations with people. And so one of the things that we've done is, like, being able to build that community. And what's one of the things that I noticed is that, some of the people that I've spoken to, have been really nice in regards to making time for me,
Mhm.
is telling, their own story, and being able to take a collection of stories from people within the industry, no matter at what stage they are. A lot of time people say, okay, I'm going to only interview this like famous person because of blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but you don't want to get to the point where, you're only like hitting this particular demographic, and
Mhm.
these are the only people that are going to listen to you, but also being able to have stories of people who are really currently living it, and communicating those, types of things. Like, for example, like the recent interview I did with Mary Mack, who is hilarious. Dave, you got to check her out.
I
Her
will.
jokes are like, I mean, her jokes are so Midwestern, but like, because, Canada, close neighbor to
Yeah,
Minnesota,
yeah.
and, Wisconsin, you might be able to relate to some of them. But the idea that, she pivoted in her career, and at a time where she's already got a master's degree in music, and people would normally say, oh, that's like really late. It's not. I mean, you pivot, and she talked about the idea of being poor twice.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's hard,
Yeah.
I mean, being poor once sucks, but like
Yeah.
being poor twice, it's
Yeah.
like, and being able to say to people it's okay, like if there's a point in your career where you're even in the creative industries, music and comedy, or music and writing, music and poetry, or whatever, if there's any point where you feel like you're not happy, to say that it's okay, you can, like, search things that you're passionate about.
But and I love what you're saying because you're really talking about being your authentic self. And I think more and more that we see in the environment, and especially in the world of digital, we see truly who people are really are. And I love where like when you talk even like that particular individual that's been poor twice, because it seems like she's on a journey. She's on a journey to see who she really wants to be. And I think this is really true to any artist, anybody, any creative out there. They're trying to figure out who they want to be and who that and who they can communicate that to. And again, you talk about going out to the world of big influencers, not the way to go. We want to go down into the micro, the nano influencers. We don't need to sell our idea to everybody. We need to sell our idea to a community that supports us.
Yeah, and being able to utilize the proper social media platforms, and also being aware, and this is something that sometimes I feel people forgot, is being aware of the language that you use on these platforms. So for example, on LinkedIn, I'm not going to be like, hey y'all, check this out, drop it, this episode just dropped, oh my god, OMG, like hashtag, like come here and listen, type of thing. I mean, you don't do that, on LinkedIn. Right? I mean, but being able to use the language too, because the language that you use with the people that you communicate with, right? There's certain words that like we're talking about right now, because like I can speak, this type of lingo with you in a way that we
Yeah,
can joke about it, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, there's going to be people that may not understand. Whoa, she knows all those words. Wow. And I just, yeah, I'm a musician, but the thing is, I've had to adapt to our world today to be able to have the career that I want. And that's something that's that sometimes it's hard to see, because I see in different universities, like some people who are like, I am like Yoda, I know all, and who have like respected careers, and I respect those people, I love those people, some of those people are my friends, but like but the thing is, it's like the perspective that they have is something of like 20, 30 years ago that got them to the point of where they are. And that's part of the reason why with the Modern Artist Project, the podcasts, the blogs, being able to engage with people in different groups, making sure that the content that I do share, I share it on different groups that people would oh well, that looks really cool, right? Type of thing. And being able to do those small things to be able to build organically, because um a lot of time people think that, okay, I'm just going to boost this ad and it's just going to do it for me. And like, yeah, you could boost it, you could like pay for an ad campaign, what have you, it'll get there, because but at the same time, the long game, I mean, the long game, if you do things organically, whereas you're getting work by word of mouth, it actually builds trust with your customers. And the thing is, that's part of the reason why, like Sarah Blakely is so
yep.
inspirational.
Love
Like,
it. Yep. Yep.
and like imagine like $5,000 in your savings, and then you like build this like multi-billion-dollar company based on a frustration that you had. I
Yep.
mean, my journey's different, but at the same time, people like this are so inspiring, in regards to being able to, solve problems, be innovative.
I love it, and I love what you're talking about. Like, and yeah, we need to be authentic in our messaging, like we've talked about, but we also, we need to play in multiple different factors: the paid journey, the own journey, and the earned journey. We got to play in those elements, and we got to constantly play the short and the long term game in order to create that messaging and get that messaging out there. So you kind of pushed me down the path because you led down this way, Sarah Blakely. What's the future look like for you, Kristine, with the Artist Project? Where are you going with it? And what are some of the challenges you're facing right now? And maybe we can share those with our audience to see maybe they can support, maybe they can give you some new ideas around some of those challenges, because it takes a community to build an idea. And I'm sure Sarah had the same thing when she was building.
Yeah, so I mean, it's so, there's like these ideas that I have, in regards to like where I want to see this go. Obviously, I mean, the hard part is like, being able to have expectations, being able to make sure that I accomplish things. I'm not trying to say, okay, I want to be in 5 years, I want to be like, because what if I don't get there in 5 years? So a lot of time I'm like, okay, right, with like the idea of like short term and long term, making sure that the short term does lead to the long term goals. So my genuine hope, like for the Modern Artist Project, is that we are able to serve like a community of people that feel like they're alone, like, on this journey, and that they feel supported in regards to, their creative pursuits, no matter what, where they are in their careers, and being able to, empower people. I mean, growing up, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me, like doing the things that I'm doing today. And, I try to encourage this with my students. I try to encourage this with the community that I serve already. And so being able to expand that reach, I mean, I have a very ambitious goal to do this within North America, right?
Yeah.
um, Not even just the United States, but like, Canada, being able to like, really make an impact, doing workshops, being able to connect with students, being able to connect with professionals, going to different like conferences, to be an advocate for this idea, this, this this passion.
So tell us some of the challenges you're facing right now that we can maybe see if we can throw it out to some students here.
Yeah, some of the challenges that we face is, the hard part with any startup. Okay, so I am speaking to the students of Douglas College, okay? So the hard part about startups is that, you have to be kind of scrappy, and being scrappy is okay, right? So it's just a matter of being able to find multiple ways of being able to, make something out of nothing. Okay, let's just
Yeah,
say that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in regards to like, making sure that, having content prepared, being able to like repurpose content, being able to, expand our reach, making connections with, different communities, lead sheets, in regards to making cold calls. I mean, the hard part is that I'm only one human. I'm only one human, but I mean, I have a small team that, that works with me, and, in to build to even what we are today is like, I'm just like, wow, we did all of that in 1 year. So yeah, I mean, those are the challenges that we face because, just because of resources.
No, and it's always that element of resources of out there, and how do you get the message out there? How do you reach that audience? How do you expand and meet that element of that goal of, I want to be more present across not only the United States, but Canada and North America, and where can I expand this idea to? So taking back, I want to just quickly leave this episode with one last thing, Kristine, and I think it has to come back to the artists that you're serving. What should they be doing today? What do they need to be doing? How can you help them? What do they need to be doing?
They need to be more proactive. I mean, The thing is, like, the hard part about auditions, like, and I've taken auditions also, and I still continue because I mean, the thing is, the more times that I learn from those experiences can actually also transfer to how I teach my students of what, the process of how to prepare and things like that. And when we think about the probabilities, right? This goes
Mm.
back into stats and math. The person, imagine there's like one position opening with an orchestra. Imagine that there are like 80 applications of people. So when you take that math and you say, okay, out of 80 people, and you take the conditions, okay, is there clarinet working? Is there reed working? Is there, is the weather can affect so many things? Oh, this person got sick, like these, I mean, the probability is small. And I'm not saying like those are, I mean, those are bad things. I mean, it's just that hard and that competitive.
Mhm.
And what I would encourage the artists that we encounter today is to be curious about, different elements of like how to express your art, like really putting it yourself out there, like being able to say, why am I special? I know that sounds so like fifth grade, like, like, like elementary, but like what makes me different from this person, or what separates me from like the sheep, right? In that sense, and that is something that I think would help a lot of people, and to again be proactive, meet new people, make friends.
And I love the messaging because it's about just getting off the couch and doing it. Hey, be the 80, because the 80 might turn into be the one that you might be. You might be the one they're looking for, but if you didn't participate in the 80, you'd never know. And I think you need to get out and test yourself and expose yourself, like you're saying, like get out there and get involved. Kristine
Yeah.
is here to help you. Get involved. Get out. If you want to reach out to Kristine and the Modern Artist Project, they're there to support too. This has been a great episode, Kristine. I appreciate your time, your effort. I love what you're doing. Keep going on the journey, and yeah, we'll look to see what we can bring. Maybe some new ideas when we share these with our Douglas College students, and see if they can bring you some other things that might help you reach that ultimate goal that you're trying to reach. Thank you.
Thank you, David.